The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have paid a solemn visit to war graves in Ypres today as they commemorate the centenary of the Battle of Passchendaele, where hundreds of thousands of Allied soldiers fell. Kate could be seen placing flowers at Tyne Cot Cemetery, the largest Commonwealth burial ground in the world, with 11,971 servicemen buried or remembered there, 8,373 of them identified. The royal couple joined Prince Charles and Prime Minister Theresa May for a ceremony to remember those killed in the notorious First World War campaign, during a two-day visit to Belgium. The commemorations were led by the Prince of Wales, who spoke of the courage and bravery of British soldiers killed at Passchendaele, one of the bloodiest battles of WWI, lasting 100 days in the summer and autumn of 1917. In his address to the gathering, the prince said, "We remember it not only for the rain that fell, the mud that weighed down the living, and swallowed the dead, but also for the courage and bravery of the men who fought here." He added, in 1920, the war reporter Philip Gibbs, who had himself witnessed Third Ypres, wrote that, "Nothing that has been written is more than the pale image of the abomination of those battlefields, and that no pen or brush has yet achieved the picture of that Armageddon in which so many of our men perished. Drawn from many nations, we come together in their resting place, cared for with such dedication by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, to commemorate their sacrifice, and to promise that we will never forget." The Duchess of Cambridge looked elegant for the occasion, in a white coat dress with a grey leaf pattern, by Catherine Walker, teamed with a dove grey hat with a delicate pink embellishment. The 35-year-old joined Belgian Queen Mathilde and German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel in laying wreaths at the graves of 4 German soldiers buried in Tyne Cot. Mrs. May, somberly dressed, read a Bible passage from Ecclesiasticus. The ceremony also included singing and the calling of the names, personal stories of some of the thousands of British and Commonwealth soldiers and others present at the battle, including nurses and stretcher bearers. They also included a letter written by a German soldier. They included an account by Private Bert Ferns, of the Lancashire Fusiliers, who fought in the battle, read by Fusilier Sean Cleary. He said, "I staggered up the hill, and then dropped over the slope into a sort of gully. It was here that I froze and became very frightened because a big shell had just burst and blown a group of lads to bits. There were bits of men all over the place, a terrible sight, men just blown to nothing. I just stood there. It was still and misty, and I could taste their blood in the air." William completed the calling of the names by reading that of the unknown soldier, saying he was a soldier of the Great War, known unto God. Charles and King Philippe then led the laying of wreaths at the Cross of Remembrance. German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel said that the Battle of Flanders stands like Verdun for the senseless horror of war. Diplomacy must never again fail as it did in 1914, there must never again be war in the middle of Europe, and never again must the youth of our continent be slaughtered, Gabriel said in a statement. He recalled that there has never before been a period in Europe of more than 70 years without war and destruction. Today it is more true than ever in a world full of crises and conflicts that Europe is far more than a single market, Gabriel said. Europe is a project of peace. Europe is our future. Only united can we succeed in protecting our interests and defending our values. Earlier, at dawn, around 100 people gathered at the Welsh Memorial in Langemarck, near where the battle began, as a cannon salute marked the start of commemorations. Welshman Peter Carter-Jones says the ceremony, and other commemorations held over the weekend, were very moving. He said all this has been done for those thousands of young men who died here so we can live in freedom. That is what it is about. It is for them, not for us. When the battle started on July 31, 1917, World War I was entering its 4th year. Both sides were desperate for a breakthrough, after suffering hundreds of thousands of casualties the year before at Verdun and the Somme in northern France, 2 other battles that vie with Passchendaele as the most costly of the war. Britain's Sir Douglas Haig was convinced he could force a breakthrough at Ypres, even though 2 earlier battles there had failed. The goal was to shut down German submarine operations on the Belgian coast. Hague's plan to take the village of Passchendaele in a few days and move on to the coast turned out to be wildly ambitious. With rain turning the swampy terrain to mud and the Germans armed with mustard gas, it would take until November for the Allies to capture the village. They never got close to the ports of Zeebrugge and Ostend. Yesterday evening, William and Kate joined Mrs. May to represent Britain at the Meanen Gate and a later show in the Grossmarkt Square. William spoke as the daily last post was played, at the towering edifice, inscribed with the names of the missing, from 3 years of hard fighting around Ypres a century ago. Watched by some 200 descendants of those who fought, he said, during the First World War Britain and Belgium stood shoulder to shoulder. 100 years on, we still stand together, gathering as so many do every night, in remembrance of that sacrifice. Sunday's poignant last post was the 30,752nd time it has been played since 1928. The towering Meanen Gate in the Belgian town is covered with the names of 54,391 British dead, who have no known grave, according to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. In just over 3 months of conflict there were more than 500,000 casualties, 325,000 Allied soldiers and 260,000 to 400,000 Germans, in the Belgian battlefields. Later, dignitaries and hundreds of guests watched the show, led by Dame Helen Mirren, which included testimony from soldiers projected onto the walls of the Cloth Hall. Yesterday, the pair paid tribute to the tens of thousands killed in one of the First World War's bloodiest conflicts. The couple stood in solemn silence as the last post sounded, and more than 54,000 poppy petals, one for every man who died, cascaded down, at an emotional service to mark 100 years since the Battle of Passchendaele began. Prince William and Kate were in Belgium to start a 2-day commemoration of the battle, fought near Ypres between July 31 and November 10, 1917. In all, 325,000 Allied soldiers and 260,000 Germans were killed or wounded. William and the King of Belgium laid wreaths at the Meanen Gate Memorial in Ypres, which bears the names of more than 54,000 fallen soldiers aged between 15 and 60 who have no known grave. Many drowned in thick mud caused by weeks of rain, summed up in poet Siegfried Sassoon's line, "I died in hell, they called it Passchendaele." The last post has been played at the Meanen Gate nearly every evening, at 8 p.m. since the unveiling of the memorial, in 1928. Last night was the 30,752nd time. William, wearing a poppy and his medals, told the commemoration crowd, during the First World War, Britain and Belgium stood shoulder to shoulder. 100 years on, we still stand together, gathering as so many do every night, in remembrance of that sacrifice. Today a special service will be held at Tyne Cot Military Cemetery, where thousands of soldiers lie.